Hello everyone and welcome to my The Bold Fans channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Standing on the sun-drenched patio with a view of the Mediterranean, Steffy Forrester Finnegan was cruelly reminded of what she had previously thought was unbreakable by the familiar chapel spire rising in the distance. They were expected to regain control of Monaco, the location where Finn had discovered her after the world had informed her that he would never return. The place where sorrow had become crying, desperate joy. The location where they had made a vow to one another that nothing or anybody would ever separate them. She had trusted him. The man she had trusted with her life, her children, and the broken parts of her heart stood a few steps away from the one person who had almost destroyed them all, and the sea wind now carried the aroma of salt and treachery. Sheila. The same woman who had shot Steffy and Finn in the chest. The woman who had abandoned them both. The lady who, like a shadow that would not go away, had plagued every peaceful moment of their marriage. Without realizing it, Steffy's fingers discovered the platinum band on her left hand. It was heavier than it had ever been. She responded, "You knew," in a steady, deep voice that scared even her. Finn's face looked pallid in the Mediterranean light. "You knew she was here." "I can explain, Steffy." "Explain." The word broke like a piece of glass. "You had every chance. On the aircraft. Within the vehicle. You gazed at me as if I were the only thing that ever mattered when we were standing in that chapel. You stared me in the eyes and didn't say anything." Sheila lingered close by. Her countenance a cautious blend of regret and calculating that Steffy had recognized for years. "Don't hold him responsible." "I did the same. He advised me to remain at the airport." Steffy's gaze never left Finn's when she said, "I don't want to hear a single word from you." The flight was delayed. "Not one." Finn moved in closer, raising his hands as though he were approaching an injured animal. "I intended to inform you. Promise. I simply wanted to spend this time with you. One pure moment sans her shadow. As soon as I realized she was on the same airline, I booked her the next flight home." "And yet here she is," Steffy said, laughing sharply and without amusement. "I told her to stay away." Once more standing between us. As she usually does. Like she always would. When the weather got chilly, she could still feel the ghostly pain of the old gunshot wound. After Finn flung himself in front of the bullet that was intended for her, she could still hear the damp thud of his body striking the ground. Even as she lay bleeding on the same floor, she could still taste the metallic terror of thinking he was dead. The recollections were intact. Her bones were home to them. Additionally, Finn had decided to conceal Sheila's existence. Steffy declared, "We're done." The words lingered between them, more weighty than the humidity of the Mediterranean. Finn's expression twisted. "Please, Steffy. Avoid saying that. Not because of this. I was attempting to safeguard our possessions." She removed the bands from her finger, the plain wedding band that had seemed to last forever, and the engagement ring with its magnificent stone. "Our marriage is constantly being reinvented by the woman who attempted to murder us both. What we have is a husband who still believes he can control her." She put the rings in his palm, saying, "Who still believes there is a version of this story where she becomes something other than a threat?" His body seemed to reject what his head was perceiving, as his fingers instinctively curled around them. "Quieter now," she went on. "I can't do this anymore. I can't wait for her to return. I can't stop wondering if she will succeed the next time you choose to handle it yourself." Sheila said, "I can't look at you and not see every secret you've kept because you thought you knew better." Even the elder woman took a step back when Steffy turned on her. "Avoid being near my kids. Keep your distance from my family. I'll make sure everyone knows who you are and what you've done if I ever see you around Kelly or Hayes again. And there won't be any legalities left to save you this time," she said without waiting for an answer. She turned and left the chapel, the terrace, and the guy who had once provided her with a safe haven. She forced her legs to continue moving even though they felt shaky. She packed with the concentrated precision of someone who has done this before, in the hotel suite she and Finn had occupied just hours before. Clothes folded with exact corners. The toiletries were put back in their cases. The silk dress she had worn to their reunion folded with such care that it seemed to somehow preserve the memory of the lady who had thought, for a few fleeting hours, that the past was finally behind them. At the door, Finn discovered her. "Steffy, please, return inside. We can discuss this," she said, giving him a serious look as something inside her chest began to fracture and take on a quieter, colder shape. She declared, "There is nothing left to talk about. You choose her. Once more. Perhaps not verbally. Perhaps not even on purpose. However, you selected the narrative in which she is still able to reach you, where she continues to dominate our life." "I love you," he shouted, his emotions unfiltered. "And I can't live in that story anymore. Above all else, greater than her. More than my own desire to comprehend my origins." "Then prove it," she replied. "You and the kids are everything. By letting me go." She didn't taste the champagne, and the flight back to Los Angeles was a whirl of recycled air. Without really seeing the gesture, she took 2 glasses from the flight attendant and gazed out the window at the infinite expanse of cloud and water. She let herself cry somewhere over the Atlantic, but she wiped away the tears before they had a chance to properly form. She remembered Hayes's solemn little face and Kelly's perceptive inquiries. She remembered how Finn still held their son throughout his nightmares and how he gazed at their daughter as if she had created sunshine. She reflected on all the pleasant mornings and challenging nights they had shared. Sheila's face in Monaco came to her as she observed them in the same manner that a predator observes prey it has already taken. Steffi had made up her mind by the time the plane landed in Los Angeles. She visited the Forrester mansion first. Ridge greeted her at the door with a type of subdued comprehension that only a father who has witnessed his daughter break and rebuilt too many times could provide. With a worried expression on her face, Taylor hovered close by. Only the essential details were revealed to them by Steffi. Sheila had pursued them, Finn had been aware, and she had put a halt to it. In front of them she didn't cry. She'd already done enough of it. Later, she sat on the side of the bed and gazed at her naked left hand by herself in the guest room, which still had remnants of her children's past visits. The lack of the rings was like a missing tooth. It was impossible to ignore, and her mind was always exploring. The following morning, she gave her attorney a call. The discussion was professional and succinct. Steffi applied the same precision to boardroom conversations at Forrester Creations when outlining her desires. Kelly and Hayes' primary custody. She didn't want to battle over property. Finn could keep the Cliff House if he so desired. She desired a clean break, as clean as it could be when 2 people had children together and a past filled with near misses, forgiveness and bloodshed. The attorney posed the anticipated queries. Was she sure? Had they thought of getting counseling? Was a reconciliation possible? Steffi thought about the sparkling water of Monaco as she gazed out the window at the familiar Los Angeles skyline. "I'm positive," she declared. Finn gave a call. The first 3 were sent to voicemail by her. Even as she was almost ready to close the door, a part of her still longed to hear his voice, so on the 4th she responded. "Steffi," he said, her name still seeming familiar. "Don't do this, please. We can work things out. I'll cut her off entirely. No communication. No second chances. Nothing. I need to feel safe," she added. "Just tell me what you need. And I don't. Not with you. I never meant to hurt you. I know." She paid a price for her admission. "That is what exacerbates the situation. It wasn't your intention to pick her above me. You simply did. In the little things. Within the mysteries. In the conviction that you could control the uncontrollable. And I lose a bit more of the version of us that I fell in love with each time you do it." The line was silent. His respiration was audible to her. "The children," he finally uttered. For the first time her voice softened as she said, "Don't take them away from me. I would never do that. You are their dad. You're a wonderful dad. That remains unchanged. But I can't continue to live in a marriage where the woman who shot us both still has the power to mold our terror." After hanging up, She sat for a considerable amount of time staring at nothing while holding the phone in her lap. The days that followed became monotonous and bizarre. With an almost surgical precision, she put herself into her work at Forrester Creations. Designs, gatherings, authorizations. When everything else seemed to be sliding, she had something to cling to thanks to the company's familiar equipment. Sensing the change, Hope kept a cautious distance from her while keeping a close eye on her in the hallways. Without asking for specifics, Thomas silently provided support. With the same steady presence that he had always given her, Ridge checked on her each night. Steffy let herself bear the full weight of her actions at night, once the kids had fallen asleep in the chambers she had prepared for them. She kept playing back the scene on the Monaco patio until the pictures became hazy. She recalled how she had put the rings into Finn's palm and how his hand had closed around them. She recalled the expression on his face as she left, the same expression he had had when he discovered her alive, distraught, and lost in that chapel years before. She was on the verge of calling him at times. She occasionally typed messages that she never sent. The divorce papers arrived with the legal process's clinical quickness. The pen moved steadily across the page as she signed them in the silence of her Forrester office. It was like shutting a door she had never wanted to shut with every signature. After she was done, she took a seat and gazed at the papers for a considerable amount of time, as though she was waiting for them to reconsider. They didn't. The terms were accepted by Finn. With a resignation that was more painful than rage. He accepted everything. He continued to look at her across the table during the ensuing mediation sessions. His eyes still full of love and something akin to disbelief, as if he still thought she would take it back. Even though it cost her, she met his stare and did not turn away. They discussed the kids. About holidays, school schedules, and the meticulous coordination of co-parenting that would shape their whole lives. They discussed the memories that resided within the walls of the Cliff House. They didn't discuss Sheila. There was a sort of unanimity in the quiet surrounding her name. Steffi drove to the beach by herself on the day the divorce was finalized. As she stood at the water's edge, she observed how rapidly her footsteps were erased by the waves. Gold and rose, the same hues that had decorated the sky over Monaco the night everything collapsed, were washing over the sun as it set. She reflected on the person she had been when Finn had first entered her life. Apprehensive, scarred, still bearing the burden of too many near misses with Liam. She considered how he had truly observed her and still picked her. In the gaps between the chaos, she considered the life they had created. Gentle mornings. While the kids slept, they stole kisses in the kitchen. The way he'd gazed at her when he'd first held Hayes. Until the day he quit waging the right battle. He had repeatedly battled for her. The sea accepted her tears without passing judgment. By the time she turned back to the car, twilight had set in. She felt both lighter and heavier at the same moment, liberated from the ongoing stress of anticipating the next crisis and burdened by the realization of the price of that freedom. Kelly was waiting at home with a sketch she had created. With one tiny hand wrapped around the plush animal Finn had given him, Hayes was already half asleep on the couch. Steffi hugged them both tightly and inhaled the comforting aroma of their hair, the tangible living evidence that some things were still intact. She stood at the window and gazed out at the city lights after they had both gone to bed. Finn was spending the first night of his life without her as his wife somewhere out there. Sheila Carter was still alive somewhere, still able to do the harm she had always been skilled at. Steffi closed her eyes and leaned her forehead on the cool glass. She had opted for security. Her children were the ones she had selected. For the identical wound, she had selected the version of herself that would not continue to bleed. It didn't feel like a win. It was a sense of survival. And for the time being, survival would be sufficient. The cobblestone walkways leading out from the chapel where Steffi Forrester Finnegan and John Finnegan had recently recommitted themselves to one another were covered in long golden shadows as the Mediterranean sun hung low over Monaco. Just moments before, the air was heavy with the aroma of old stone and sea salt, the silent intensity of two individuals who had endured too much to take another chance lightly. Finn's arms had been around her, firm and comforting. when he assured her that she would always come first. His voice had been steady. He had been believed by Steffy. She had to have faith in him. The illusion then broke. Sheila Carter appeared to have simply decided that the water belonged to her, just as she had once thought Finn's life did, as she stood barefoot on the beach near them, her dress hem soaked. Before her mind could properly process what she was seeing, Steffy's body became cold. Standing there as if she had every right to share the same light, the same air, and the same city that had once been a haven of hope and reunification was the woman who had shot her, Finn and Taylor. Before he said anything, Finn's expression told her everything. The moment of recognition, the fast computation, the information he had carried but decided not to divulge. "You were aware," Steffy remarked. The words sounded flat, devoid of sound but still sharp enough to cut. "You knew she was here," Finn said as he approached her, raising his hands in the well-known gesture of someone attempting to quell a tempest he had contributed to. "I advised her to remain at the airport. I arranged for her flight back. She was supposed to be gone," Steffy said with a brief, resentful laugh. "And yet here she is, once more." Sheila's voice floated over the beach, cautious, even kind. "Always again. Don't hold him responsible." He made an effort. There was a delay in the flight. Steffy's eyes were fixed on the woman who had plagued every aspect of her marriage. "I don't want to hear a single word from you," she said. "You are not allowed to talk to me. You are not allowed to stand close to me." Finn went between them, but the damage was already done. "You don't get to exist in the same country as my children." After so many breakups, the trust that had been restored began to split up once more, this time more broadly. When Steffy turned to face her husband, she saw not the man who had previously taken a bullet for her, but the man who had once again put her and their kids in danger by keeping a secret. "We're done," she declared. Like a verdict, the two words hovered between them. She took the plain platinum band and the diamond, which had once seemed like a promise, off her finger and placed them in Finn's hand. Her skin warmed the metal. He gazed at the rings as though they could provide an explanation for what had transpired. They didn't. Steffy turned and left. She didn't turn around. She might stumble if she turned around. The cycle would continue if she faltered. Sheila would look for another opportunity. Finn would discover another reason to think his birth mother might be able to change. And Steffy would never stop waiting for the next bullet, the next danger, the next instance in which the safety of her kids would take a backseat to someone else's story of redemption. It was too quiet on the private jet that took her back to Los Angeles. Champagne was offered by a flight attendant. Steffy drank 2 glasses, neither of which tasted particularly good. The European coastline gave way to the vast ocean outside the window. Something more resilient than sadness took root inside her chest. She had cherished Finn. She still had feelings for him. That was the issue. Sheila has never been kept out of their lives by love. The choice had been made by the time the aircraft landed in California. Divorce. Not a split. Not another short-term getaway to the Forrester estate while she awaited Finn's next decision. Tidy legal conclusion. Finn couldn't completely shut the door, so she wouldn't have to live with the fear that the woman who had attempted to kill her might show up at any time for another year, month or day. At the airport, Taylor met her. The older woman understood after glancing at her daughter's face. Only long enough for Steffy to gather what she needed. Clothes for herself and the kids, paperwork, and the few personal belongings that still felt like hers, did they drive in almost complete silence to the Cliff House. Hayes had a babysitter. Kelly spent the weekend with Liam. After giving them a call, Steffy made arrangements for the kids to remain where they were until she had a better idea. She refused to drag them throughout the immediate mayhem. The following morning, Finn discovered her at the Forrester estate. He wore the same hollow face that he had worn following each of Sheila's past crises. Exhaustion. He extended the rings as though giving them back would stop time. He said, "I love you. You were my choice." "You chose secrecy," Steffy replied. "I will always choose you. You made the decision to allow her to remain in Monaco long enough to locate us." "I was trying to protect you," I said, By lying, you decided for me what I could handle. She raised her voice, then lowered it. Finn, I asked you for one thing. Every iteration of this nightmare has one thing in common. Keep her away. He attempted to explain the short window, the delayed trip, and how Sheila had gotten around his orders. And every time, somehow, she ends up closer. Steffi paid attention without interjecting. She just stated, I can't do this anymore, once he was done.